Hello and welcome to CIO Leadership Live in ASEAN. My name is Shireen Robert, editor of CIO ASEAN based in Singapore, and we're back for another episode in conversation with IT leaders across Southeast Asia and Hong Kong around leadership, innovation, and business strategy. Today's episode is a little special as we are commemorating International Women's Day, and to lend us their perspective on business and empowerment, I'm incredibly excited to welcome Geraldine Wong, Chief Data Officer of GXS Bank based in Singapore. Lovely for you to join us, Geraldine.
Thank you, Shireen.
So I think for the audience, just to know a little bit more about yourself and GXS Bank as a company, could you share a little bit more about how GXS Bank came about and how you landed the opportunity to be on its technology leadership team?
So just for the audience here, I think since it's a regional, so GXS is actually a consortium that is backed by Grab and Singtel, Grab being Southeast Asian's ride-hailing company, and Singtel, information technology and telecommunication within the region as well. And we are one of the two successful digital full bank license applicants that was provided license back in December 2020. So my history at least came from, by virtue, being the head of data science within Singtel. And when the opportunity arise, this really exciting opportunity arise, I actually put my hand up for it. Because what drew me from this opportunity was the fact that we were able to leverage on the ecosystem data assets of both two big giants of Grab and Singtel, and how can I use some of this eco data assets to promote data-driven financial inclusion? How do we rethink the way customers can engage, can experience the digital economy? How can we resolve current problems and issues that we see in traditional banking today? And really starting from scratch. How often do you get the opportunity to start a bank from scratch, let alone create your own data vision, strategy, operating model that can drive data-driven inclusion as well?
And as you mentioned, I guess it's almost about 2 years now since the official launch of the bank. And you mentioned a bit more about your role in the data team. So could you share a bit more about how the data team is involved with the business and how the journey has been in hitting, some of the intended milestones you have, and perhaps some of the ambitions you had when you came into it?
Yeah, so I'd like to split how our evolution of our journey came about within the data team in the business. I was very fortunate to be one of the first few staff members that was being hired into the team, even before the license was given in December 2020. And maybe as we speak about the launches, the various product launches, so we have in August 2022, when the bank was first launching its CASA, and then followed by the April 2023, where we had our Flexi Loan, and followed by in debit cards were being launched in November 2023. And that evolution also gave rise to how I've seen the team evolve, our data team evolve. We started in the first year being very much looking at how we look at the data strategy, the vision, the operating model, the frameworks, setting up governance, such as the data committee, to look at how data should best be assessed, managed, collected, for example. And in the second year, based on that, we looked at how we can operationalize this with the right tools, the right people, and the processes in place. And of course, along the way in second year, you would always see that, hey, actually what we have put in paper on the first year didn't exactly fit into the whole frameworks. And that requires some form of modification, refining, retuning of the frameworks as well. And then I would say in the third year, really harvesting the insights, because after you've collected all this data, creating the models, being smarter about it, how do we retune? We do a lot of reinforcement learning models that would then help us to better delight our customers. And maybe I'll go back, start off with also the data vision that we have as an organization. This is very much aligned to the company's vision. Our data vision, at least, is to delight our customers by delivering personalized, meaningful customer experiences and promoting the economic mobility with data insights and AI. And so with this in mind, we have actually organized the team in a multifaceted approach, right? One, how do we partner the business in making smarter, timely decisions, proactively, not preempting, and of course preempting the customer's need, not when the customer is needing it before, then you do the insighting. Secondly, how do we ensure safeguards, standards are in place to govern how we use the data, whether there's a high quality data that's being available for use in a safe manner. And I think the last point is about how do we journey with business partners to really uplift their maturity in the application of data. And this is both in terms of leveraging tools, leveraging data, as well as how do we change that mindset of handling data in their day-to-day business decisions as well. And I think lastly, some of the ambitions is really in line with the last point that I just spoke about. How do we drive GXS to be an AI insight-driven organizations across all roles, across all levels? I think that's really an important ambition for me.
Certainly a lot of challenges or more like goals that you have ahead, especially with such a new organization and with a new team. So it's really a mammoth of a task that you have ahead of you. And shifting gears a bit, we are, as I mentioned, commemorating International Women's Day. And I guess as a society, we do have ambitions as well about the movement towards greater gender equality or equity in the workforce. And yourself, being in such a high leadership position, and I would say in most developed communities at least, we do see equal opportunities for women to start a career or empower them to pursue what they want. But how actually do we help women move up the ladder further into leadership positions? Like, are there any existing obstacles that you currently see? Or how can we better equip ourselves to actually move further up that ladder?
So I think, first of all, there's always the awareness part. I think we need to really raise awareness of women in leadership across the board, and find really advocates in men as well to really help bring the awareness. And as women leaders, I do believe that we should hold more responsibility in highlighting these needs by actually being the good role models in the presence of boardrooms or within management. I recall myself having my first manager being a woman, and that to me was my first role model in a tech situation that I look up to. And that has really played strongly for me in where I feel like I aspire to be. The second part, which is more intentional, is about mentorship programs, both within and outside the organization. So there's many women in tech type chapters that I see. So I'm part of Singapore Computer Society, and they have women tech chapters, women chapters lead and all that. And I think for example, I'll give an example from Singapore Institute Directors. There's also a women directors chapter and this really forms a support group that is so important to bring out the challenges that they face from maybe different life stages, different seasons of their life. How do they progress? When you're having kids and managing a tech career, what are the challenges you face? How do people overcome this? I think it's good to have that support group as well. The third point, I think that it also quite intentional, is about the creation, and for us leaders, whether it's male or female, is being able to create career progression pathways for women to go into these leadership positions. And this is not very different to what we see in regular leadership programs, but it has to have a strong consideration that women will have significant life stages for which they need to take career breaks or maybe take their foot off the pedal from their career in some stages. And what these programs, I feel, should take into account is how do they then ease them back into that part of their career life stage and accelerate accordingly as well, or be able to provide alternative career pathways that can best support them at different stages of their life as well.
As you mentioned, we have made progress in terms of lowering the barriers to entry for women in industries that were previously male-dominated. But the sustainability of the careers is also quite important to talk about. And you mentioned that we need to create all these, pathways for women. But in terms of your advice for those of us who are looking for like a long-term career in an industry like IT, like how would you advise them to, what do they need to look out for? What do they need to, better prepare themselves with?
So maybe I just wanted to go back to your question about saying that lowering the barriers, right? I don't think it's about lowering the barriers to entry for women. Because to me, it's really critical that such roles in IT are regarded based on competence as well. Competence, talent, and interest. I think it's about exposing more girls and women at a younger age to the opportunities that exist beyond the traditional roles out there. And this could be a very simple conversation of biasness. I recall my kids being told by my mom that, certain roles are not meant for women. And that, that would never come out in a conversation with me and them, right? So it's also about how do we bring our kids to expose them to certain biasness within certain roles as well. So anyway, if we go back to my previous points on the above question about intentional programs, we need to set aside. And I feel like this is more needed within the tech industry because tech industry really moves very fast. And therefore, as organizations, they need to know that, okay, if I want to ease a women back from their maternity leave, because 4 months is a very long period of time and tech industry moves so fast within that 4 months, how do I best do that as well? And I think for women, it is the constant having that growth mindset, the curiosity, and I think do not hesitate to make your presence felt, even if you're in the company of men. Being confident about raising your opinions, of course, smart opinions. And it's also about taking charge of your career, being proactive about it, seeking out those mentors, seeking out where you think you can improve further, or where this even male mentors, how did they get into those positions, whether there are differences between how they think and how women think as well. And I think lastly, some advice, we can't have it all, yes. We need to compartmentalize as well. I feel I leverage on compartmentalizing a lot. So when I'm really focused at work, it's fully focused being at work. And then when I'm just at home and being with the kids, it's 100% with the kids and not split. That's how I productively use my time as well.
And I think we do need to highlight that women wear many hats in their lives, daughters, partners, spouses, mothers, and career professionals. I myself will definitely carry many more hats in the future in one of those roles. And it frightens me, to be honest, how to balance, a career and my personal life in the future. But for yourself, who I guess you've been through some of those challenges, but do you see that balancing career and family, that the situation has improved or evolved? And how do you think society as a whole can better support women with these kind of multiple roles that they need to carry?
Yeah, so I think what's interesting is that COVID has actually, and we speak a lot about it, right? COVID could be a double-edged sword, but what it has brought about is fusing that work life into one. And because of that, you've heard of reports of women having to juggle with homeschooling kids, the whole remote work. But yet, the roles of men and women during the COVID times has actually evolved as well, right? You hear of men also taking on more domestic roles, and in some instances, being the main caregiver for children as well. And I think this is about how do we promote the shared responsibilities at home. I see that evolving as well. And I think society, workplaces also have to continue to support such initiatives. And so I'll give you an example. I just had a staff of mine. He's a male employee. He just had a kid. And I think as managers, we have to support his, maybe he'll be working from home more often because his wife would need him more. And by supporting the man having that shared responsibility, I think helps his wife at least to also, be able to juggle her work as well. So I think as a society, as a work organization, we need to be mindful of such arrangements and support as well. I think there's also a lot of coming back to the women with multifaceted roles. I think women have a lot of invisible labor we call mental load, and it's still going to be present. Again, as I think we really have to be mindful how this invisible labor is being taken on by women, and to encourage them to maybe also share this with their spouses as well. And so as leaders, to me, I feel that we need to have more understanding, more flexibility with employees, both male and female, when there's demands on family commitments, for example. And it also shows some of our support to the male employees. And it really promotes that that whole balanced child caring responsibility within the family, and through education, I think we can actually promote some of this shared responsibilities from young age, right? When we tell them that, hey, both husband and wife has got shared responsibilities, it becomes normalized, so that kids these days know that in future when they become husbands or dads, this is a expected role of them as well.
I love how we are also, not forgetting the men. I think really supporting young boys as well and helping them understand the kind of world that we live in. It all starts at the young age, like you mentioned. How we model ourselves is what our future kids will see. So that's really, really important to talk about. And I know this conversation can go on forever and ever. And there's so much work left to do. And the conversation will probably change from a few years now. So yeah, let's see what it will be next time in the kind of society we live in, and hopefully we take your advice, and present the kind of world that we want to live in. Yeah, but it's been such a pleasure to have this conversation with you, Geraldine. Thank you for all the insights, not just into your own personal life, but also in terms of your career. We're excited to see what GXS has to offer in the future. And yeah, we hope to have you on again to discuss some of your successes that you see and as the bank grows in size in business. And we hope for those of you watching that you have enjoyed this episode, and do check back for our next CIO conversation.